Hi, and welcome to YouthTalk, a podcast run by Baptist Youth, where in each episode we'll think about a different topic from the perspective of a Christian young person. I'm Niall and this is Andrew, and in today's episode we're going to look at friendship and how our relationship with God aligns and affects our friendships. Your friends are often who you spend a lot of time with the average young person between the ages of 12 to 18 while they're at school spending around 8 hours a day, potentially with their best friend. This for many can be a really great experience and something that they really enjoy. Some of these friendships last for years beyond school, and while others fall apart due to lack of contact or changing circumstances. So Andrew, growing up, what sort of friends did you have around you, and what impact would you say they had on your life?
Yeah, growing up I actually had a really lovely group of friends. I often think back whenever I'm telling my testimony and thinking about my life. I'm not the coolest kid around. But growing up, certainly I went to high school, went to Wallace in Lisburn. I just fell in with a good group of friends. I had two guys that I got especially close with, and we just had a really strong friendship, enjoyed each other's company. We had a wider group from school and kind of overlapped with church as well. And actually those friendships have continued. We ended up going to kind of youth fellowships together, youth groups, youth clubs. We ended up going on, trips during the summer together. And now I'm finished uni and working, and they're still my friends. And it's been I've loved it. Really been helppful, and even thinking about the impact they've maybe had on my life involved in church as well. Again, whenever I think about my testimony, I often say I don't think I would have been as where I am without the encouragement or kind of just the nudges here and there from friends over the years, getting involved in church, enjoying reading God's word. They've been definitely a blessing and really, really encouraging for me. Yeah,
it's often, I suppose, a lot of your friendships can be, it affects, as you said, who you really become, especially in those younger years when it's who you're spending maybe, as I said, 8 hours a day with, and it's that urge to fit in with the people you are around. Maybe not even an urge to fit in, but more just because that's the fact of who, the people who you're around. You want to be like them, so therefore, spending time with them is what makes that happen.
Yeah, totally.
So you might ask, why does God matter in our friendships then? Why can we not just be friends with whoever we want to be? And we're gonna go over two reasons why God matters. And the first reason is our relationship with God can and does affect our relationship with our friends. And secondly, our relationship with friends can affect our relationship with God. So firstly, our relationship with God can and does affect our relationship with our friends. So for us to properly understand our friends' purpose in our lives, we must have our relationship with God put right. And you may have heard it said, our vertical relationship affects the relationships we have on the horizontal. You need to be right with God to then have those right relationships on with your friends, your classmates, whoever you go to school with. But once we have that correct understanding of God's love and how much He loved us, we then have a better understanding of how we ought to show that love. A verse even that I thought of when I was preparing for this, which is often maybe misquoted, I would say misquoted at weddings, is that of 1 John 4:19, and it's we love because He first loved us. And we automatically, when we think of love, we think of that, wedding love or relationship love. But love is really at the centre of everything we are as a Christian. We were shown that love, and we should then show that love to others. For us to properly love our friends and to properly have true relationships with them, we need to have that love right with God. So that's, our relationship with God has to be right to then be right with our friends. Another verse even just was in that same chapter. When I was preparing, I looked above and noticed that it said, Beloved, let us love one another, for love is from God, and whoever loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. So if we truly know God, love should be at the centre of all our relationships. With our friends, as often, it can be hard to love because maybe you've had a falling out, or you're just not getting on with them how you used to. But that love still needs to be at the centre even in those times. So that has to be put right. And then secondly, how can our relationships, you're going to cover the next point, so how can our relationship with friends affect our relationship, how does our relationship with friends affect our relationship with God?
Yeah, I think very similar to what you've actually mentioned there, just thinking back about my friendships and how they have encouraged me. I think even firstly, like, friends are great, having friendships, it's fun, isn't it? And like, I can think back of all the really fun memories and funny times we've had and just class crack.
Yeah.
And I do think that is a part of being a Christian. We're created to enjoy the life that we've been given, to glorify and serve God by enjoying Him. And I think friendship is really core in that.
Even just to enjoy that life you have on earth.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to have that. You have to. God's gifted you. He's given you those friends, so you need to have that. He's given you them, and to love them, to have fun with them, and even just to enjoy that relationship.
Yeah, it's a gift. Like, I think friendship is a gift, totally. And I think even then, thinking about your own walk with God and trying to be faithful, or being involved in church, or being disciplined to read the Bible, I found my friendships really did encourage me. Whether I was, I had some friends who were really, really, just really faithful and on fire for Jesus growing up through school, and maybe sometimes I wasn't feeling that much, but whenever I saw them, I was around them, it was quite contagious. And I thought, for me anyway, that's been an encouragement. And then on the flip side, I've been able to encourage some friends whenever maybe they've gone through maybe difficult times or stressed a little bit. I've been able, or together we've been able to remind ourselves about what's important. And yeah, I think I was just thinking about this as well. You mentioned it earlier. As a Christian, having Christian friends, you can actually help each other point out sin, or maybe ways you're maybe disobeying God, where you're maybe blind to it yourself. And it's not fun, obviously, whenever somebody points out, you're maybe doing something that's not right in God's eyes. But on the whole, I think it's good for a friend to point it out. And for me, that's been I'm certainly growing in that sense of receiving accountability well, but I think that's definitely a highlight of godly friendships.
Yeah, it's something that's really hard to harvest in friendships. I think especially among young guys, because that whole idea of like opening up seems like it's so counterculture.
I still find it so difficult.
Yeah, it's so difficult. How, obviously then we go back, you say that you were able to sort of have that. Do you think that really just came up by chance, or was there things that you as friends put into place that helped?
I think, to be honest, it kind of started with us wanting to be faithful and setting an example for one another and having a strong witness as followers of Jesus.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that would be my encouragement for somebody maybe thinking about how could we think about accountability. As I say, I do find it difficult to be open and honest, and I'm sure you feel it similarly. Exactly. But I think my encouragement would be to take the step to be the one to share maybe something that you're struggling with, or maybe share something that you've found difficult. Be the one to ask a question about how somebody actually is, as opposed to just talking about whatever's going on in the world at the minute. Maybe actually ask how are things. And actually, one thing that stood out for me whenever I was thinking about how to be accountable with friends is, we've got some people in church, and they'll maybe ask, how is school life, for example, and maybe difficult things. But maybe a week or 2 weeks later, they like follow up with it. So they remember what I said. They want to check in, and I think that is a helpful way to show love. Being intentional, really, in your relationship, by asking questions that have meaning. Because so often you can be asked, how are you? Oh yeah, I'm all good. But actually being willing to, open up with people and share how you are. And I think it is then, once somebody has shared that with you, you want to repay that trust by actually listening and caring and following up with them afterwards, so that it's not just a one-time thing. Because that certainly has been really encouraging for me, when somebody has been able to listen and maybe give advice later on along the line. So yeah, definitely is helpful. I think even potentially if you call it out from the start, if you say, as friends, we should be accountable, that to be fair, can actually sometimes make it harder, because it comes with that sense of like awkwardness. Whereas even just taking steps to make it be the case naturally, and sort of it'll, with God's help, it'll become so much easier. And because it's the friendship that He's designed, like it's what He's designed for, friendship. So yeah, we've looked really at the moment all about Christian friends. So does this mean that what the Bible has said and what we've looked over? How should our lives as Christians, should we live in some kind of like Christian bubble where we don't talk to anyone who isn't, who isn't a Christian, or we're not friends with anyone who isn't? But or should we have this like, what level should we allow friendships to go to when they are not
Christian, or how do we work that? That's such a big topic, but how do
No, totally. I think you probably agree. It's not helpful for us to live in this bubble where we don't intermingle with any non-Christian or people who are outside of Christ.
Yeah. Because apart from anything else, as Christians, we're called to witness.
Yeah.
We're called to reach Christ.
And I think that's probably one aspect of it. Being friends with people who don't know Jesus. A real aspect, as you mentioned earlier, we're called to love, because God has loved us through Christ, and I think we should be intentional to be a witness for Jesus with people who don't know him. I think that is, it's easy to be friends with somebody and maybe just avoid that.
Yeah.
But if you're friends with somebody who doesn't know Christ, I do think it has to be a priority. And I'm guilty of shying away from it as well. But even in how we live and our faithfulness, I think does have to reflect Christ. But no, I think it is helpful. As I say, friendship is fun. It's fun to have crack. But just thinking over my friendships, there really is no friendship like knowing somebody in Christ. Actually on church on Sunday, we were chatting about whenever you meet another Christian, even if they're a stranger, you already have a deeper bond than somebody who you've maybe been friends with for years because we're united in Christ. And I think
naturally we can always go further in our Christian friendship because of that.
Yeah, you can never be as close.
Have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think I would just say yes, it's good to have friendships with people who are not Christian, but don't neglect friendships with people who do know Christ. And I would maybe just hazard a warning for those who have friends who don't know Jesus. I would just be wary not to allow that relationship to slip into something that maybe is a hindrance to your walk. It's very easy to start valuing a friendship over your faith, and I would just want to have a balance of that.
You sort of need to stay proactive and be able to notice those things as they come up. That if that is something that you start that you might find tempting, or a scenario where they're inviting you to be able to say no, I shouldn't go to that, or no, I shouldn't do that, because that could leave me in a scenario where I feel tempted and I feel like I wouldn't know what to do. So thank you, Andrew, and thank you for answering so well. And hopefully this has been helpful for all of you listening. As we've discussed, this balance needs to be struck between having a strong group of Christian friends who you can be accountable to, and you can have this bond while still being able to witness to Christ to those who are unsaved, and have those friendships with those who are generally around you. And one point I even thought of and noted down when I was preparing was about how this could be a struggle, especially developing these accountable friendships. If because naturally when I think of an accountable friendship, I immediately think of church and people who you're friends with in church, and naturally we might think of this friendship has to be someone who is your age or is. But I would really encourage you, if that is, obviously we have no time to talk about it today, but to go back and listen to episode 10 of Youth Talk, where Matt actually discussed the importance of how you deal with a scenario when you are one of the few young people in your church, and being able to still develop these relationships despite that being the case. So thank you for tuning into Youth Talk. Hopefully it's been helpful for you, and stay tuned wherever you listen from, whether that was on our YouTube channel or any of our podcast platforms, to the next episode when we'll look at another problem or issue from the perspective of a Christian young person.